Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm really excited about this podcast. I've got writer-director Alek Lev with me. Hey, Alek.
How you doing?
I am doing great. All right, so Alek wrote and directed what? What with a question mark? Which, first of all, this is exciting. I should have planned that a little better. We're releasing this podcast on the day that What is being released on VOD.
Correct.
Which means if people want to see the film that won 3 awards at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in November of 2021, it won the Audience Award for Best Feature Film, it won Best Director for Alek, and it won Best Actor in a Lead Role for John Maucere. Am I saying his name all right?
Maucere is how
Maucere, yeah.
We tend
French.
to go for it. Yeah, more Italian, Maucere.
Oh,
Maucere.
More Italian, yeah. Maucere. But who did an amazing performance. You did an amazing job. So it's fun and exciting for me to get to talk to you in plans for the film's release. Obviously, we are pre-recording this and we're on Zoom, so the recording quality ain't what she should be. But we're good. And before we jump into Alek's history, I'll just say, and when I try to find out his history, is I just want to say that what really is amazing cinema, when we were at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival and I saw it, I think it was the 3rd time I watched the whole film because, I watch it, and then the really good ones I watch with my wife because I wanted her to see it. And then to watch it in a full theater on a 25-foot screen. And the funniest thing is, the thing about the Wi-Fi theater that sometimes bothers me where we hold the Sherman Oaks Film Festival is, the color grading of the projector isn't great. So your film looked beautiful because it was black and white, almost all of it. So it was just an amazing experience for me to see your film on the big screen and then get to talk to you and your team about it. And it truly is just a beautiful, beautiful film. It shows you as a writer and director. I just find everything about that film impressive. And, balancing comedy and a serious message, and then essentially doing a tribute to the silent film era without it coming across as too much or hokey or interfering. I mean, I feel like you managed to walk a tightrope in between. Well, I'm going to say the Twin Towers that are not there anymore, but I feel like you walked that tightrope, with no net, and you nailed it.
Well, thank you. First of all, it was great doing the festival, and you edit a film on I edit a film on a relatively small computer screen, and so the few times I have gotten to see it on a full screen is quite something. I guess most art forms aren't really like that, right? When you paint your painting, you're just painting your painting, and the whole way through you see what your painting is. And when you're doing a lot of podcasting, you're hearing yourself doing the recording. I do a lot of that as well. When you're editing a film, it's not the work of art. It's just this thing on your laptop, and it's not a movie until it expands and explodes to that size. You're framing things so that they will be that size. And especially in this movie, where we could talk about it later, I'm sure a lot of shots, people are relatively small in the frame. There's very few close-ups in this movie, and that's on purpose, and that's part of the style. But that means they're pretty small on my MacBook. And then to see them the way they were supposed to be is quite something. So it was wonderful doing the event at the Whitefire, where I actually met several of the people involved in this movie when I was in a show with Deaf West Theater, Flowers for Algernon, many years ago. Among other people who were in that show is an actor who is now in Coda, nominated for Best Picture. So it's all the deaf world, which I guess we should say this is a part of, is pretty small.
Pretty small. And I didn't even, it's so, I hope this is a compliment. I don't even think of I just think of it as a film. It's just a wonderful, amazing film. And, but yeah, it was also a really meaningful day because your film, you did an amazing thing, which is you wrote a film, about a deaf actor, and every deaf character is played by a deaf actor, which is something that should have been happening for years, but your film might be the only one that's ever truly pulled that off. And there might probably others, but I don't know.
There have been others, certainly. I mean, Coda right now among them.
Coda did it right too.
Oh, sure. And I mean, all the way back to Children of a Lesser God, that did it right. But along the way, sort of between those Marlee Matlin bookends, when she's involved, things are usually done correctly because she won't stand for them to be done otherwise. But there are plenty of times where they thought it would be cool to have a deaf character, but let's get a movie star and let's put them in there, which of course is something at this point that we would never do for fill in the blank. I mean, the most obvious of being, let's have a black character played by a white. It's been a long time since that's been okay. But yet this still goes on with deaf actors. And that's what the movie is about. Because that's what John, the lead actor, John Maucere, this is something that he and all the actors in the movie have experienced over time, seeing these roles, seeing deafness used as kind of a toy, as let's put a deaf character in, because then if our other characters are, really empathetic to them, it shows that our other characters are great people, they're used as these props or as movie of the week, heartstring tugging crap, played often by hearing actors, and none of that is good.
No offense, I'm sure actors can always do a nice job, but I mean, those portrayals, even when an actor of an Al Pacino level does it, you're watching the screen and it's BS. It doesn't actually work. It doesn't
work, and of course, there's a bigger discussion of which I'm not even remotely qualified to talk about, but yes, of course, we're all know actors shouldn't only be playing roles that are precisely who they are in life. That's not fun, and we don't need to do that. But politics and the world come into it, and simply put, there aren't that many roles for deaf people, and there's a lot of deaf actors. So come on. Let's let deaf people play their own roles.
Yeah, clearly. Well, we can play around with the politics of it later, but when a community is underrepresented in the first place, and then you take white people who can get as many roles, who 98% of the roles are offered to them in the first place, when they take stuff away from other people, it's starting as a society. I think we're tired of it. I think we want people to be able to represent themselves.
Correct.
Which is cool. But before we talk about all that, before we talk about what, I know for sure that, I don't know for sure, but I have a hunch that you were not able to make a film like this without a really interesting history and past, because it's so well accomplished. So take me back to the beginning. When did you get involved in performance and acting and film? What were your inspirations?
So, definitely, I was always definitely a movie kid. Grew up in the 80s, and movies were pretty much everything to me. And then in college, I was a theater major, so I was doing a lot of that, focusing on directing specifically. I went to Wesleyan University, and in the Middletown Library, I found a 3 VHS set called A Hard Act to Follow, which was a 3-part documentary about Buster Keaton. And I had already known Charlie Chaplin prior to that, as everyone does. But Buster, I only sort of knew vaguely, and with no exaggeration, in the title sequence of that documentary, just the little montage they throw together at the beginning to show you some of Buster's things. That was when I was 19 or so, and here I am later than that. And it's been a lifelong joy and study to be watching and thinking about Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. And so, I also grew up watching, I sort of put this together later, I grew up watching Coyote. Wile E. Coyote was always my favorite of the animated shows. So Silent, those were always silent. And Tom and Jerry also almost entirely silent. So there's something about that has always just, so to speak, spoken to me. And then after college, to sort of skip over the deaf sign language stuff for a second, I did make a short black and white silent film with deaf people in it. So that was a very early idea that I had. And then I made another film many years ago, 2005, that I directed called Ready or Not. It was a tiny, tiny, tiny little horror film that was super fun to do. And then I've been involved in films in other ways.
But in college, you were a film major. So
I was a theater major.
Theater major, right. So actually more performance than production?
Directing mostly. I was directing and a little bit of acting, a little of both.
Right. But directing stage?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and by the way, you're an East Coast fellow?
Born and raised in New York.
Born and raised in New York. I want to get that out of you because I think I saw it in your bio on film.
Born and raised. Yeah, sure. But I have escaped. And so I've lived in LA for the last 17 years.
Excellent. Well, welcome. I guess you've been here a while. So horror films and a short silent.
Yeah, the horror film just as an idea that my friend of many, many years and I came up with, and it was basically hide and seek. And there had not been really a horror film with hide and seek as its underpinning. And this was in the early days of reality shows. So we had this idea that there would be a reality show that was a hide and seek show, but really the cameraman was killing everyone. And so we thought that'll be fun. And we got a gigantic house that we got full use of. And we shot it in whatever it was 7 or 8 days. And it was the most, up until the premiere of this movie, it was the most Hollywoody we felt in that while shooting that movie, we had to take a day off to go to New York, where a film that I was in that my friend Joel had produced and his wife Maura had directed called Conventioneers had premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. So there was a moment of like, we're making movies. This is pretty cool. And in that movie, in Conventioners, I play a sign language interpreter, among other things. So all this stuff keeps spiraling in on itself. This silent film stuff and this sign language stuff and movie making and theater and all of that.
Yeah, but the movie making, at least in what you have, such a delicate touch and such a so it all started with discovering that Buster Keaton VHS set and just appreciating it for what it is. Like that just stuck with you?
Yeah, and it's so different from the movies that I mean, my movies growing up where it was all George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, Ridley Scott. It was all action and cameras flying around and special effects. And, I still love that stuff. Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin are very, very different. They're very controlled. It's a good word to use. It's very still, and you are... I mean, Buster moves his camera a lot more, but still you are watching an actor perform rather than, which is doing a lot more of the storytelling than the camera or the editing is really doing. And for whatever reason that fascinated me, I guess it also goes to the theater directing, because it's a little more, certainly with Charlie Chaplin, in the earlier films especially, you're kind of watching a play on film. They both got more complicated with their cameras as the years went on. But so there's a mix of something that I liked about plunking the camera down and watching the actor go, but then having a little bit of putting care into where that camera is being plunked down and then how to break out of that and move it around a little bit. And so for as much as I was watching Indiana Jones and Star Wars, my brain, when it was thinking about what to do with the camera, was definitely thinking more in terms of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. For sure.
And I just have a goofy comparison that I think you'll enjoy, which is listening to you. You almost remind me of a Mike Nichols type who went from directing stage to directing film, but caring about cinema and caring about camera placement. I think some of the best
like
films.
Mike Nichols. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just, you are the new Mike Nichols. Okay. But it definitely, it falls into that for me where it's someone who cares as much about performance, like, not to knock Lucas and Spielberg, but I think a lot of times they're more about spectacle than the performance. Like the performances are just good because they cast well sometimes, but
maybe I would also say that Mike Nichols cares a lot more about words than I do. I'm less interested in words. And I think that comes from a lot of things. One of them is definitely boredom with shooting dialogue scenes. And I mean, what not have a lot of dialogue scenes because it's a silent movie, but it also doesn't really have any scenes of coverage. It doesn't really have look at this actor, then look at that actor, then look at that actor, then look at that actor. I don't know. I don't have the patience for it. And I've been on enough sets watching, okay, let's shoot this half of the scene for 3 hours. Let's turn the cameras around. Let's shoot the other half of the scene for 3 hours, 5 hours, 7 hours. I'm like, can I just put the camera down and watch both actors in the shot, just do the scene and then be done? And obviously I hope there's still something visually interesting to it. But I'm also like, I don't think it's funnier if I'm going over the shoulder, medium, close up. It's just as funny if I just watch them do it. And so that's part of what drives me to choose that style. I also think it's a little bit, I enjoy the challenge of, well, how do you just shoot two people on screen together and make it interesting when you can't default to actual technique and skill of coming closer to an actor and using that to tell your story.
Right. And you are definitely trusting your performers more that way too, because you're giving them free license to get all that timing right.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to the theater, right? When you're, for a director, once you're opening night, it's such a bizarre notion. You can't just yell, sorry, everyone, we're going to do that again. You just have absolutely no control. And so I dig that, but that's also 100% where the casting comes from is I cast actors in that movie knowing I need them to be able to perform as though on stage. They can't be saved by cutting and I'm going to go to someone else. And they can't even be saved by cutting within their own scene where, okay, the beginning, we'll do a couple takes and I'll get you in the wide, then I'll move in close for this. You just got to get it. We have a lot of shots that are 3 solid minutes long, 4 minutes long. And if they screw up at minute 3 and 30 seconds, well, you got to do the whole thing again. But once they don't, you've just edited 3 minutes and 30 seconds of your movie without doing anything, which is lovely.
It is. It is. It must have made it a more pleasant edit for you.
Certainly parts of it were, it used to be the opening shot. There's a bit where one of the characters is on a couch and he has to do a whole bunch of business around a couch. And it's no longer the opening of the movie, but it's close to it. And yeah, there was one take that worked. We did it a couple of times. There was one take that worked. And so there you go. That part of my editing day is done.
And by the way, no one knows this but Alec, but I just made a weird expression on my face because if you'd asked me, I would have said the couch scene is first. I guess because it's so memorable. Oh, no. Yeah, that's right.
There's a little bit it was first. And then actually our lead actor, John, had a great idea of he just felt like I like keeping it first because it shows you this. You're going to have to watch this movie a little differently than you're going to watch other movies. But there was a fine line between that and boring. And so John said, can you start off super fast and then slow us down in that moment? And I took his suggestion. It was a great one. And I think it works much better this way.
It is a great one. And then by memory, still that beautiful, I'll call it a beautiful set piece where it's John performing with a couch. And the couch is as much a character as he is.
Right.
And it just, that communicates to us. This is going to be classic vaudevillian inspired cinema. Just a super memorable scene. But now I do remember what comes before that. And yeah, it works out. You probably do make a lot of audience members happy that way.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, should we jump into how Alek, the filmmaker and director, got involved with ASL? And
sure. So back to college again, and a friend of mine, Mia Lobel, who has gone on to be Malcolm Gladwell's podcast producer. Mia, freshman year, said to me, I'm taking the sign language class. It's really cool. And I said, okay. And that changed my life. And so it was an ASL 1, and I took to it. I got lucky in two ways. The class was taught entirely by teaching assistants. There was no lead teacher in the semester that I took it. And of all those TAs, 6 of them were hearing and 2 of them were deaf. One of them was my TA, which was just very lucky that you had a deaf TA. So you had these little mini moments of immersion where you're learning the way you should learn a language. And the other TA was someone who I wound up dating for a couple of years. So between all of that, I got into this very quickly. The National Theater of the Deaf, which was the first professional theater for deaf actors in the world, happened to be 20 minutes down the road from Wesleyan, and the theater had a connection to Wesleyan. I interned there for a summer and actually went back 3 times. They had a 6-week summer intensive theater program. And so I was fully immersed in a true deaf experience, deaf world, becoming fluent over time in the language. I finally toured with them, doing some children's theater. And so I was fully immersed and pretty fluent after those first couple of years. I started working as a sign language interpreter, and for 20 some odd years now, I've been a certified American Sign Language interpreter, and I've done all sorts of fun things with that. And then I also went on to work with Deaf West Theater here in LA. I've interpreted for them a lot. I acted with them a couple times, directed a workshop. So that little suggestion by Mia, hey, maybe I should take a sign language class, changed everything. Also at NTD, I met my wife, who is also fluent in sign language, she's hearing. She was an actor then. She was touring with the company. And so it's all thanks to Mia's off the cuff suggestion, hey, you should take sign language.
Which is both incredible. And yeah, I mean, actually I wish that more people would get into it. I think I told you at the theater, like I have a friend who's been an interpreter in a school system for he actually just retired after 30 years, which scary that I'm of retirement age, allegedly. But yeah, so that is incredible. That's incredible. And it obviously helped you. Did it help you as a writer to know so many great actors and performers? And so as you had ideas, obviously it's sort of natural, I think, for a creative person to look at to be in their environment and pull from it in their creativity. So when you sat down to write stuff, did you think about the actors you'd want to work with, and then it led you to write a script like what? So I want over and over and over in all the things I've done, I just keep working with the same actors. And then they're like a new one. I mean, my closest friends, not in the acting world, my closest friends are all people I met when I was 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old. I don't like meeting new people. I'm not good at it. So too with actors, at first I was doing a lot of things with people from Wesleyan, and then, for me, I don't see myself. My role in making this movie is not to be any sort of activist, really. It's not my story to tell. I'm telling John's story. I'm telling the story of a lot of these actors. And when it comes to talking about what's the movie for, what are we doing, I think it's my role to leave that to them to talk about their experience in the world. For me, these are my actor friends, so I want to work with them. And they're some amazing actors. And so I get to make a movie. Cool. I want them to be in the movie. And then I want other people to see them and hire them for their movies. So I absolutely, did I meet any new actors for what? No, I knew almost everyone going in and wrote them for almost all of them entirely, just for them. And that's been true since NTD. Yeah. Since National Theater of the Deaf. I knew some people. And so I wanted to work with them, and so I wrote some roles for them. Absolutely. And your focus as a director, it was really just to make the best, most entertaining film you could. Like, you were just approaching it not as you were letting the message speak for itself, and you were just focusing on the quality of the film. It sounds like. I think so. I mean, I'm very willing to, at Dances with Films, they asked me to be on a panel where I talked about representation in film. And I'm sitting there
like, and it was good, but I want to be absolutely upfront that I'm aware of my curious position here. I'm not deaf. I also haven't gotten a lot of work in Hollywood, but not because of historical discrimination, just because Hollywood's tough. So I know that I'm coming to it from a place of privilege. And to be clear, just to say a few things about the movie, even if we want to back up a little bit, it's filmed in black and white in the style of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, but it's set in modern day Los Angeles, and it tells the story of a deaf actor who is sick and tired of the disrespect that he gets from Hollywood and decides to take matters into his own hands. There, I've said that. Also, the executive producers are deaf. The director of photography was deaf. Half the crew were deaf. Half the cast was deaf. The caterer was deaf. All the investors are deaf. I was hired to do this. And so what is my place in the world of representation here is, it's up in the air. But I feel fairly confident after 25 years that I am a member of this community. It's a cousin. I'm not a brother or a sister. I'm a cousin to it, but it's where I've been working my entire professional life. And so, no, I'm not the one to say what shouldn't be done for, with, near deaf people. But if I can be a part of something that my friends want to do and speak about as a political act, I'm all for it. At the same time, I just want to make a silent film. I'm really into seeing what it could be, but not just a silent film. What the hell does it mean to have a silent film with deaf people? That's not a normal silent film because their language is visual. So what does that even mean? That artistically, comedically, cinematically was fun for me to explore.
And you referred to yourself as being hired, but did you write the script solely on your own first and then show it to people?
So,
or was it a conversation with the brothers?
No. So here's what happened. So John and Paul Maucere, they made a movie several years ago called Super Deafy, No Ordinary Hero, the Super Deafy movie. Years went by, they hadn't made another one, and then they kind of got their juices flowing, and they had a coffee with, these two actors from Spain, Josep Rosello and Marina Escrich, and all deaf, and they were like, let's do it. Let's make another movie. And so they brought in DJ Kurz, who is the artistic director of Deaf West Theater, and they came up with something. And the basic notion was that these two deaf people from Spain were going to come to America. They were going to meet John, who was going to play some character, a couple of characters actually, and hijinks would ensue. And so there was a story written. There was maybe part of a script. I think a short script was written. At first, they weren't sure if it was going to be a feature. It was kind of up in the air. They asked me to direct it. And the first thing I said was 100% yes. And they had, even if the story wasn't set yet, one thing they definitely had was deaf people from different countries, and sign language is unique to each country. Some countries have more than one sign language in it. So they are not mutually understandable, though two deaf people can get along a lot better than two hearing people can. So they had a lot of scenes with someone using American Sign Language, someone using Catalan Sign Language, which is different than Spanish Sign Language. German Sign Language was going to be in it, and people who didn't sign at all. And I looked at all that and I said, I don't know how exactly, but can we make this a silent movie? And I understand that we have to deal with what does it mean to have sign language in a silent movie. But I just mean, can we just not record any sound and not record any dialogue? And even if people are talking, not record them, and we'll have title cards, and it'd be cool to be black and white too, because black and white's neat. And they said, sure. So that was all sealed in the first meeting at Starbucks, I believe. Then once it was decided it would be a feature, I said, there's a lot of great little details in what you have, but I would actually like to rewrite it from page one, if that's okay. And I want to base it almost as an abstracted version, John, of your life, which is not what it was. I just wanted to kind of tell your story. And he said, go do that. And so I incredibly quickly wrote this script, like comically fast. It was a short number of weeks. If
it just flowed out of you.
It did. I mean, mind you, it's a short script. There's very, very little dialogue. But I have a way that I write things, and I sort of structure it out in terms of a certain number of sequences and certain number of acts. And once I liked all that, the next step was not that difficult, because the scene with John on the couch was, his name is Don. Don's cell phone runs out of power. He has to figure out how to charge it, and he can't. Well, that turns into 3 minutes on screen. So that's pretty easy to write. But yeah, so I wrote it all based on both John's life, taking a couple of the elements that already existed.
And you'd known him for such a long time. It's not like you were close friends. So it's not like you had to sit down and interview him and sit down and learn stuff. All this was in you from being close to him for years.
Correct. Though the way the movie starts out is we just sort of see Don's life, right? We want to just get a quick setup to put us in the place to understand where he is very quickly. And so what I did say was, just tell me some of the typical things that happen to you day to day that are a little more of a struggle for you. I don't like to say because you're deaf. It's because because no one else has the patience to communicate with someone where it might take a few more steps, right? And so he said, oh, well, ordering coffee, and we're both huge coffee fanatics, so ordering coffee is all throughout this movie. And he said, oh, in auditions, this kind of thing happens. I remember he said, this is not my experience, but like deaf person going to a bar for a date and then, talking to someone, and then they realize that they're deaf and they just get freaked out over the fact that they're deaf rather than just chilling their way through it. So it wasn't an interview, but it was hey, just give me some funny things that happened to you. Great, cool. We're going to use those. That was sort of the extent of it.
Yeah. And I imagine he described the auditioning experience that he's gone through multiple times, or?
So, because
I just say that as a fan of the film, because I think the audition really hits home.
Right. So there's a moment in the scene in the movie where Don decides at the last second, he sees a call for an actor that describes him sort of, to a ridiculous level. It describes him exactly, like his height, his weight, his look, the fact that he's good at, would have mime skills and everything. But he says, the title cards say, but they don't want a deaf actor. They never do. Right. Now that I know, I'm sort of in this world enough to know that while things are definitely changing, that's just sort of been true. And then he decides, screw it though. He's going to go, he's going to try. And he gets there and what's he going to do? He's got this script that's not written for someone to sign it or anything. So he just goes into the audition and just basically says, it's a bit of acting that I just absolutely love, where he just, he's just gesturing. Don't worry. I could do this. Just watch. I could do this. You don't want to be pushy in an audition, but it needs to be a little pushy to get them to just chill out, because they're like, what do you mean you're deaf? That's not what we called for. Don't worry. And he goes and he muddles his way, gestures his way through it. And so, sure, we talked a little bit about what that was like, but also I've been in those rooms a little bit. I've seen it happen.
Excellent. So it sounds like it came together pretty wonderfully. Like sometimes a wonderful film has a wonderful story. Sometimes it's a labor of love, but it sounds like, the script just flowed out of you, and then it sounded like you got the support you needed to shoot it.
Yeah, I'm blanking now, but for some reason there was a year delay, and I have to go remind myself and ask John what that was. But there was a year delay in there somewhere. Had to do with financing, I think, or schedules. Oh, maybe it was schedules of our cinematographer. I don't remember. But yeah, our investors are all these deaf entrepreneurs who believed in John and Paul and believed in the film and wanted to see deaf actors and deaf artists of all kinds get these opportunities, and signing artists to have these opportunities. And we're incredibly generous and supportive and have been to this day. We still need their support. But yeah, I mean, it was, I was not I'm a producer now. I sort of came on, did some producing after the film wrapped. So I was not involved in how difficult that was to get the money or not, but it seemed to happen relatively quickly.
Yeah. And for the right reasons, and everyone obviously coming together in a supportive, collaborative environment.
Definitely.
And then was it a quick shoot, long shoot?
15 days.
Yeah. And by the way, this is a full feature film on the festival circuit. You know, sometimes there's 70 minutes, 75, which is respectable, but yours is 90, right? You're a full hour and a half feature film.
It was 94 minutes. We made the from the beginning, I said, this has to be over 90 minutes. And I don't know why, but audience members deciding what movie we're going to watch tonight, they want short things for the short attention span side of them. But for movies, if a movie says 78 minutes, which I think is the minimum it has to be, but it says 82, 84, for me, there's just they just didn't have enough good material to put into this thing. And as soon as you cross that 90-minute threshold, oh, it's a movie. And so I was like, this movie will be over 90 minutes long, even if it's 91. And yes, I think it's 94 or something like that.
Yeah. And to get that done in 15 days.
It's a sprint. It's the most, by far the most joyous experience I've ever had professionally. You know, a film shoot standard shoot is 12 hours a day. And so that's what it was. It was 12 hours a day for 15 days roughly. And,
yeah, which means you were averaging just over 6 pages a day in those 12 hours.
Well, but the script is like 50 pages long. Because
so it's
silent.
Unique.
So that was actually a problem. We weren't sure how long this movie was going to be. You have someone called the script supervisor who's timing each scene or each take, figuring out, sort of guessing about how long the movie is going to be if you were to just by her clock kind of figure that out. And it was kind of a gamble. Like, I hope this is 90 something minutes. And magically it was. I mean, there's a lot of scenes that were taken out. So there was much more that.
Right. You did the thing where you ended up nice and long and then you could trim the fat.
Yeah.
Oh, but also, you are obviously, it's not a page thing because you have a paragraph that turns into 3 minutes.
That's correct. That is correct. No, it had a completely different, it had a different ending. All the emotional beats of the current ending were there. There was a whole other thing that was a solid 4 minutes long and took quite a while to shoot. The short version of it is just that we for every major scene that we then did it again in the most ridiculous version of it we could think of. And we did it at a undercrank. We did it at a fast speed. And there was going to be a little compilation at the end that was like kind of the movie you just saw, all down into the 4 minute version of it, all even more absurd than it was the first time. And it was fun and it was funny. But I'm friends with Craig Thomas, who's one of the creators of How I Met Your Mother. And he saw it and he said, why don't you just end sweet instead of silly? And I was like, you're right. And it was the weirdest, it took so long to edit and so long to shoot. And I was just like, yeah, you're totally right. So we just cut out 4 minutes. And I told everyone else on the team, like, what do you think about that? They're like, yeah, just cut it out. So, I mean, I shot a scene with my kids and I cut that out too. Sometimes you just got to cut things for the sake of the movie, even if you love them.
Sure. And it might be an antiquated term, but it sounds like you got a great DVD extra.
We do have a bunch of extra scenes. That one is currently not one of them, but I'm noodling what to do with that. It's possible.
Right, you could use it for some kind of a promotional purpose or something.
Yeah. Out of context, it's complete gibberish because it's all funny only because you saw the slower version of it earlier. Like, oh, that's funny that they did it that way. But I don't know. We'll see. It'll be the 20th anniversary. The 20th anniversary release.
I was about to say 10th anniversary. It can be the re-release. But yeah, that sounds fun. And so a quick but wonderful shoot, and then it's you editing yourself.
Yes. I'll say just a couple of things during the shoot that are just worthy of note. There's a fun scene in a train, ostensibly of a train arriving. And this was a great suggestion by our producer. We tried to rent a train station in LA, and we could. It was just a little expensive. It didn't look great. And she said, why don't we use the train museum, Travel Town here, where the trains don't actually move, but they are from 100 and 150 years ago. So it's bizarre. And we don't explain, hey, why does that train look old? Like, because the movie is silent in black and white, you just sort of excuse the absurdity of it. And we did a little camera trick to make it look like the train was moving. So that was a lovely, not so much accident, but that came later. Also,
and if I can interrupt, it was also for anyone who's a local Angelino, Travel Town is where every kid had a minimum, especially in the 70s and 80s, every kid had a minimum of 2 to 3 birthday parties there. Oh, so when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's Travel Town. That's where I had a couple birthdays. My brother had some birthdays. One of my nephews had a birthday there, which was, so it was like, it's actually just one of the most wonderful places in LA. It's in Griffith Park, and so actually seeing that and knowing what you were using it for, it was like a warm embrace for a film that actually is a bit of a love letter to Los Angeles in some ways. Yeah, I could mention that too. First, I'll say the other part of the joy for me in shooting the way we did, was these 2 actors, Sheena Lyles and Jeremy Guskin. Sheena's actually a deaf woman. I did not know beforehand. We did a call there was the one role we auditioned for, I think, and I got her tape, and it was like maybe 3 seconds in. I was like, yep, that's it. She's amazing. Jeremy, on the other hand, I've known since I was 4. And so the joy of it not being this closely written thing, but rather let the camera roll, is watching these 2. There's a scene where they're in a movie theater, and all I said was, here you have popcorn and you're watching a movie together, and it's your first date and you're really into each other. Go. And I just got to sit and watch like anyone else. I mean, 10 minutes of just improv, and the style of the movie is that it could be jump cut so that they don't need to make sense, just joke. And that I can sit back and watch something that I never could have planned. Okay, you put your arm around here and he puts her hand. None of that can possibly be planned. That's the joy of casting people you trust and people you know, or in Sheena's case, just people who you know are fantastic. There's also Keaton Talmadge. Keaton is Buster Keaton's great granddaughter and a friend of mine. And so I had a scene for her where I wanted her to just do a little dance. And she said, oh, there's this scene that Buster Keaton does where he gets his feet caught in paint cans. I want to do that. She just, on the day, I think, or maybe the day before, she went, great, do that. So I just get to sit back and just watch her do this paint can dance. So that's a nice bonus to the style of directing of shooting, of just wide shot, do what you're going to do. I get to be amused as well. Actually, when you said how you love to set the camera and let the actors work within it, I think the first scene that popped in my mind when you described that was that one with Keaton Talmadge, because she's the employee of the woman, and
right.
and what she's doing in the background at times is so intriguing and encapsulating. It is. When you talked about setting the camera and letting actors play within it, I think of the couch and I think of that.
Right. And that's sort of the theater, right? The theater thing, it's fun to do in theaters. You have something going on downstage, but let's have a little action going on upstage and let your eye kind of wander around and play. It's definitely a love letter to Buster and Charlie in Los Angeles. We shot at the former location of Buster Keaton's studio, which I was the vice president for a while of the International Buster Keaton Society. Check them out, busterkeaton.org. And I helped lead this charge to design and place a plaque to mark where his studio was. And then I was making a movie. I was like, can I make an excuse to shoot this plaque to have it in the movie? And so that's there. Charlie Chaplin's old studio is there. A couple of locations where they both shot in LA. We shoot there and we show all this in the credits. And then the most amazing one was we found no matter what you know about Charlie Chaplin, I think you can sort of picture him walking off into the sunset. And at the end of Modern Times, he walks off in his tramp character. Actually, the last appearance of the tramp character walks off into the sunset with Paul Goddard. And I said, can we shoot there? Could we find that? And there's this guy, John Bankston, and he's made a career of figuring out where Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd shot all their movies. And so he's like, oh, I think it's in this location here. And we found this precise spot. And so we shot on that exact stretch of land where Chaplin shot that. And we show that in the credits as well, because it's all well and good to do these cool things, but I just want people to know about it also. We also shot at Pink's Hot Dogs. We ended up not using that, but it's a very famous location in LA. But we shot outside the Chinese Theater, very famous, with the handprints and the Walk of Fame. And the movie premiered at the Chinese Theater at the Dances with Films Festival where we had shot. And that was a lovely way of tying it all up.
And actually, to complement it further, that's actually something that a couple filmmakers have said to me, that once you've done the festival circuit a couple times, you realize you want to keep the credits interesting. Right. Because when you know there's a Q&A after the credits, you want to keep people entertained. And I think your film might be the best credit sequence because all those touches and I believe you split the screen and show the two. Yeah. It just warms your heart to like feel the connections to cinematic history, and it certainly makes repeated viewings more fun.
Totally. I think, I'm also on the board of a group called Retro Format Films here in Los Angeles, and they show silent films around the city. Basically, they restore them as well. There's something about them that, you have to sort of, for a mind in 2022, different than what you would have seen, we would have thought about them then, but because they're so separate from us now and so different and a little weird, it allowed us to do strange things. We have a little bit of talking to the camera. We just reveal things in the credits, and we show you photos in the credits. Like, it's okay to step out of the movie a little bit because the movie's already stepping out of reality. It's already in black and white. It's already silent. It's already a little strange. So we can do things that don't quite make sense, that are really just there for the joke or just there for whatever reason. But it's not just a classic story. This happens and this happens and this happens, and we want you to suspend your disbelief the whole time. Not really here. You're disbelieving quite a bit, which is fine. That's okay. And then hopefully you're also getting drawn into Don's story along the way.
For sure. We're always drawn in by the story. And it actually is a very cool thing what you do also, to know that because it feels like we tear everything apart and rebuild. And the fact that there are things left over from that era that you were able to find, I don't know, that has an emotional impact for me too.
I think so. I think it's great having them there. And, it was like, I've gotten to do a bunch of fun things in the industry, but not nearly as many as I want to. And so anytime I get to do something, there's sort of that, well, let's put it all into this, because I don't know if I'm going to get to do something again. So this was like, let's do all the silent film stuff that I like, and let's just shoot all those places that I'd like to see on film, and let's get my friends all in this movie and get sign language in this movie. And, my friends scored this thing. It's 94 minutes of music. I was sitting here saying, okay, at some point I got to bring up the score. Yeah. Yeah. The first thing we decided was we definitely weren't going to do piano the way they usually used to do it. But that's exactly what the movie is, because we tried other things, and it was the strangest experiment. It was just like, my first thing to him was, I said, I just want Keith Richards to play guitar through this movie. That's it. I just want jangly, bluesy Keith Richards. And it just didn't match. Your brain just doesn't want that. It wants piano. It wants a certain 20s sound. And so he used that we eventually just sort of got to that. And then it's okay. But with that, now let's do the things we do in 2022. Let's give each character its own theme, and let's play with it here and there and mix the themes together. And his name is Justin Asher. I've known him only since 7th grade. All these other people I've known since I was like 4. Justin can play any instrument and can turn anything into an instrument. And so, yeah, I mean, 94 minutes of music entirely that he wrote, recorded, played, mixed, engineered, everything. Every bit of sound is Justin Asher. Quite a feat.
Yeah, and it enhances every frame of the film. Every scene is made better by the music. And I mean, I know we mentioned John winning Best Actor in a Lead Role at the festival and stuff, but I mean the level of performance in the film. I mean, we're talking about a lot of the technical things and all this and that, but I just feel like I have to say for people listening that if you know none of this, this film is hilarious. It's funny. It's smart. Every performer is just leaping off the screen with personality, including, I know he was, Josh Breslow was hilarious, as the bad guy almost.
Yeah. I mean, those are the two people definitely to talk about, to wrap that up is John and Josh. I just think are miraculous actors, and, Josh is brilliant and brilliantly funny, and can do the smallest work and the absolute broadest. And he, Josh worked with me a lot. I edited, then he sat with me through everything. He helped me write all the titles, as well. And there were some titles that we worked on for literally a year, just like punching up the jokes on these title cards. But just getting what we were trying to do with this character from the very beginning. And he is actually now writing with me and Joel Viertel. Joel's the one who I vaguely mentioned earlier. He produced and wrote Conventioneers. He's been my best friend since forever. And so for the next film we want to do with this whole group of people, the three of us are writing the story together and Josh is writing the script. So yes, incredible actor, writer, everything. And then John Maucere is what this, I mean, I can't think of another movie that other than those of olden times that goes out of its way as we did to feature an actor for 95% of the screen time. You're watching him the whole way. And I just think he's amazing. I mean, a lot of his work up till now, other than his movie and a couple of other things, has been a lot broader. He does a lot of emceeing, a lot of stand-up comedy, very big and supremely funny. It's hard to describe his type of humor and what it means to be funny in sign language. It's more the way signs are used than word, punchline, set up, punchline. It's different, but just the way you could think of any actor, any improv actor, anyone who you marvel at how quick, I mean, it's, Robin Williams comes to mind, but listen to Conan O'Brien, just say anything, any 3 sentences, and he's going to come up with a joke. That's just the way his brain works. It's going to be funny. Or a physical comedian who just is always able to just watch Buster Keaton on any of the films he did later on, any of the sort of personal appearances. He's just funny every second. And John can just turn that thing on and be hysterical, but then also can be really, really small and real. And this is, I mean, it's a painful movie for him. This is his life. And it's true that he's faced discrimination for decades, just wanting to be an actor. And here we're kind of doing the funny version of it, but it has to be grounded in something. And it clearly is. And, he just wanted to go deeper and deeper, even while doing some of the broader things for the sake of comedy.
No, I mean, I think I really enjoyed getting to talk to John at the Whitefire, and he gives the kind of performance that by the end of the film, you're like, God, I wish that was my friend, because you see, and his presence, his on-screen presence is, I think no one has ever been able to, figure out what it is. But some people, when they're on on a big screen in a theater, they look like they belong there, and some people don't. And he absolutely belongs.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was great to, particularly him, as I was saying at the very beginning, just see him on this gigantic screen after watching him on my tiny screen for so long. And yeah, just a great face, great body. And, I wanted to highlight, basically I just want every scene to just highlight his skills. I just want to have fun each time. What else can John do? Which is very much a Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin thing. Here's another thing that I can do. Let's put it on camera. And that drove a lot of the storytelling too. Just what's another thing that John can do? Let's watch him do it.
Which makes it an excellent collaboration for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you a word we haven't used yet is COVID, but I imagine you finished post, you locked picture and you were done with all the sound, everything, and COVID had hit us already?
Oh, no. We locked picture a long time ago.
You finished a long time ago.
Long time ago. So here's a little insight, and you know this. So there are like 7 major film festivals, and the ones you've heard of, the bigger ones, right? Sundance and Cannes and Tribeca and South by Southwest and all this. They'll only show your movie if no one else has shown it. Okay. So for a year, all we were doing was submitting to 7 festivals that you have a much better chance of getting into Harvard twice and then hit by lightning than getting into Sundance, especially if you are a tiny movie without movie stars, right? That's just the way it is, which sucks, but we went for it. So that was just a year of waiting, like literally. And then we go, okay, but can we now submit to the film festivals that make any sense? And when we did, we've been in, I think, 22 film festivals in 8 countries. We won 20 awards, and John's won a bunch, and the film has won a bunch, and music and supporting actors and everything. And we're like, right, that's what this movie is for. I mean, let's show it in Sherman Oaks. Let's show it in Hollywood. Let's show it in the place that make any sense for this size movie, this style movie. So no, it's been done a while. That said, there's certainly been some more tweaks along the way because we could. But I'm thrilled at this point that both the moment you're listening to this, well, let's put it this way. We're recording this a little bit before you're hearing it. I'm 99% sure the movie's not going to change from the moment I'm talking to the moment you're seeing, but there is one tiny thing that might get added to the credits. Other than that, though,
right. You're not changing anything in the film, but you might.
Correct.
And that is an amazing thing to live in an era where you can make a change in a matter of weeks. Because and at this point, and by the way, I shouldn't, but I just have to throw some toilet paper on the trees of Sundance because whatever. I met the people who co-founded the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. We met up there in Park City, and I, went for years in the 90s, and I don't know how they wouldn't just embrace your film with a great big bear hug. It represents so many things that they claim to, but
I know it's
weird times.
That's a city hall you're not going to fight, and
no.
The experience of quote smaller film festivals is lovely, and I don't like to schmooze. I'm John loves to. I am horrific at it. I would rather just watch my movie with a few people. Q&As are super fun. Let's do that, and then I want to go home. Honestly, the reason those festivals are important is because that is when you can get your movie can potentially be acquired and shown. So that's not what happened with us. We have a distributor, which is different than, Netflix coming along and saying, this is now going to be Netflix presents what? And the way that happens is at these festivals, among other ways. And so you give it a try.
Yeah, sometimes. But I have friends who have gone up to Sundance and come back home, and it did not change their lives.
Of course.
One bit. So
of course.
But I just had to complain because I think your film should have been there. But anyway,
well, thank you.
And Toronto and Venice and
sure.
But I'm very glad that your lead actor John is a Sherman Oaks local, so it was really special have something from a Sherman Oaks family at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. It all, and then the ties that you and other performers had to the Whitefire Theater was kind of special too.
Yeah, I directed the vagina monologues there one weekend a couple of years ago with deaf actors, the entire cast of deaf actors.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that was great. That was amazing.
All right, well, and now it's out and it's on. We're 100% sure it's out today. Yes, everybody should go.
Yes, go to thewhatmovie.com. That is where if you go to thewhatmovie.com, that will take you to the various ways that you can watch that. Right
is it thewhatmovie.com?
Thewhatmovie.com. Yes,
and then that'll show whether you want to watch it on this VOD or that VOD correct. Or your cable system's VOD.
That is.
But
correct.
People should support this film. They should kick a couple dollars because it's a whole lot less, I think, than going out to the movies.
Yeah, or even if it's more, just do it.
Yeah, even if it's more. Buy it multiple times, actually.
Yeah, buy a T-shirt. I don't know.
But they should. They should. I wish I knew who gives you the whatever. Work through a distributor. It's wonderful that the film's getting out there.
Yeah.
And what are you working on since? Like it sounds like there's already another screenplay being written.
Yeah,
and you sound like an incredibly busy person.
I'm a sign language interpreter. I do a bunch of that still. I teach a lot of interpreting also, workshops for interpreters. I'm a podcast producer. I have a season of Meeting Tom Cruise, which you can go check out at meetingtomcruise.com, which is total inanity to two actors who love Tom Cruise, but I've never met Tom Cruise. And so we interview people who have, and they tell their Tom Cruise stories, and they're all pretty wild and amazing. Couple of other podcasts also in the works right now. I'll be, can I say that? I'm going to be producing an opera that is with deaf actors as well. And yes, we are hard at work at the next script, which I can't say anything about other than to say this, especially if you have any investors listening. If everything we've said so far about this movie, about what feels absolutely lovely, but rather esoteric, maybe a little niche, maybe a little small, black and white silent movie, this next one, while absolutely affordable, is not any of those things. This is, while being a small movie, this is as big and broad a concept as you could have, because what we decided was the next movie is not going to be about deafness in any way, with some modifications to that. But it's just going to be a movie, a sort of mystery action thriller, and very wildly excited about that. And hopefully that will be happening, I don't know, sooner than later, next week, 5 years from now, making movies. Who knows?
There's no way to know how something like that pans out. But it is obviously, I mean, I could tell watching that your skill set as a director is not at all limited to what is in what, because what has so many aspects and so many, I mean, what is a really well-rounded, all-encompassing film. Again, it's not at all like limited to like, this person knows how to do a tribute to silent. It's like not just a tribute to silent. It's far more than that. And there's wonderful performances and great cinematography. So
yeah, cinematography is by Ruan de Plazis. He's deaf. He's incredible. What he can do, how he can bend the light. I'm definitely ready to. The camera will not stop moving in the next one. Is the plan. But still shooting dialogue scenes in sign language is still very different than shooting dialogue scenes when people are speaking. The shortest way to think about the challenge is if you have two people talking in a regular, just turn on the TV, someone's talking, then you're going to cut to the reaction shot of the other person while they're listening. Well, you can't do that. You can't cut away from someone signing in the middle of a discussion to see what the other person thinks. They have to either be on screen with them, or the first person has to be done signing then you go look at the other one, which is a very different pacing. There's also, you can't do close-ups in the same way. Your close-up can't be from the neck up because you're not going to see the hands. So there are certain challenges, parameters that you want to work within. That said, we still want the camera to be flying around a little more next time.
And you'll do it. Yeah. You'll wear out some Steadicam people with big old rigs on their shoulders, or who knows? I mean, I keep talking to people who use, a high-end camera like a Red and then an iPhone for pickups, and they cut it together and you can't tell them apart. So
yeah, totally.
I mean, even Soderbergh said he used iPhones for a film because it just made more sense. They were more mobile and you can get them in places. So
right.
Yeah. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
All right, well, anything else you want to mention before we run? I know thewhatmovie.com is what people should know.
Definitely. Let's mention that one. No, just that.
And you're a low key person. You're not pimping your own Instagram and.
No, God, no. I mean, I think the movie is at the What Movie on all the various things. No, it just bores me. It just, the social media side of things just absolutely bores me. But go follow it. You're supposed to follow it. Please follow it. Go follow us on all the things.
At the What Movie.
Yeah, but just watch the movie. Watch the movie. And if
seriously, I mean, watch the movie if you, and then if you want to discuss it, just find me somewhere on,
sure. Yeah.
On social media. Find me and we'll discuss it. Cause I love discussing these movies. It's absolutely the number one word I want to use is entertaining. It is a fun viewing. It entertained the heck out of a full house at Sherman Oaks Film Festival last year. So it is a fun film. And, we've had a rough couple of years here, and it's nice when our filmed entertainment is entertaining and not just, nothing against drama, but I really enjoy a comedy too.
I hear you. I used to work on How I Met Your Mother, and I got friendly with Josh Radnor, who said something about one of his projects, and I've never stopped saying it, which is I just want to put a little joy into the world. And so that's really the whole thing here is there's a lot of politics to it. There's a lot of references to this movie and that movie and this director, but yeah, we just sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I will go on my closing spiel to beg for all sorts of things from the listening public. But first of all, like and subscribe. I suppose I'm supposed to like and subscribe. If you want to be a nice person, give this podcast 5 stars if you're listening and you enjoyed. Talking about the world of 5 stars, Discover Indie Film is actually this podcast where I get a much nicer conversation in with filmmakers than we get at the theater because, we have actually pretty decently long Q&As at the theater, but we involve that pesky audience in all kinds of things. So I would have never gotten to know Alek's true story and more insights into this film if I just settled for a conversation at a theater in front of 90 people. So I appreciate you coming onto this podcast. If people want to learn more about it, it's discoverindiefilm.com. And actually, there is a TV series if you want to check it out. I learned, just like What is getting a wonderful release, a lot of the feature films at the film festival ended up on nice streaming platforms and VOD, and the wonderful short films that I was in love with were going nowhere. So after talking to a bunch of people on the podcast, I talked to a bunch of the filmmakers, and we put together an anthology of short films, and we put it on Amazon Prime Video, and it's called Discover Indie Film. So if you want to go to Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, you will see wonderful shorts handpicked from the festival circuit. If you like indie film, I highly recommend it. And if you want to be extra nice, give that sucker 5 stars on Amazon.com. What the heck? And we were talking about Sherman Oaks Film Festival. We hold that every November. You can learn more about it at ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And there is a sister festival because we couldn't pick a name for a festival 8 years ago when we were starting it. So we started Sherman Oaks Film Festival and we started Filmvasion Los Angeles. And then they ended up coexisting 6 months apart. Every June we hold Filmvasion Los Angeles, and you can learn about it at filmvasionla.com, and it's at FilmvasionLA on social media. And I think that is all I've said. I've got to remember to snap a picture of Alek on Zoom so that I can put it up on the Discovery Indie Film website, but it doesn't go anywhere else. But thank you, Alek Lev, for talking.
Thank you so much for having me.
And by the way, the next episode of this podcast will be Alek answering the 4 questions, which are favorite films, underrated, overrated, and something lesser known people should seek out. That's coming up next, 2 days after this one. But what came out today, we're releasing this podcast the day it comes out on VOD. So watch the film. Find a way to do it. Go to the website at discoveryindiefilm.com. We'll include the link. So all is good. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening.